Guys, welcome back to the channel where I cover missing persons, unsolved cases, crime news, and more. Well, like all of you guys, I'm sure, I have been following the case of missing grandma or mom, she's both, Nancy Guthrie, and it's been a week now since Savannah's mama has just disappeared. Now, initially, when I heard about this, when I heard, the first thoughts of it, I heard, well, maybe she wandered off. She's 84 years old, something happened. And then, of course, by the next day, it was a lot more going on than that. But as we enter the second week of this missing persons case, let's put it that way, I'm at odds as to what really happened to Nancy, because it doesn't make sense to me, guys. It really doesn't. And I posted on the community tab because I want to know your guys' thoughts, and I definitely want to hear from you guys after I post this video. We're talking, it's about almost 5:45 Eastern time as I record this, and the deadline for this $6 million Bitcoin ransom is just over an hour away. Remember, we had another ransom that was like $4 or $5 million. I remember hearing the word five, but then people are saying it's 4 million. Obviously, the money is not the problem. I don't foresee that as a problem, and that kind of came and went. I just feel like it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Obviously, I'm not a detective, I'm not an investigator, I'm not any of these sorts of things, but like most of you guys, I followed a lot of true crime cases, okay? And there's just so many things that don't add up, from the get go, really. And there's many parts of the timeline from the first, couple days there, the first 24 hours plus, and we're going to take a quick look at that, as well as look at a bit from Ashley Banfield. I'm not going to keep this one very long because I just wanted to get, a little bit of something out there and get you guys' thoughts. So let me pull up the little bit from Ashley Banfield. I've been watching her for the most part, as well as, of course, Brian Enton, News Daddy from News Nation. They're kind of like two of my go-tos. And now, of course, Ashley's on her own. She's just doing the YouTube thing. But she speaks about a lot of the stuff. She's been covering this case on her channel. But she goes into the whole church. There's someone from Nancy's church. We heard that they called in saying that she didn't go to church. So I have a lot of questions about this part of the timeline and just who was this person that called in from Nancy's church, considering now we've been hearing that Nancy Guthrie hasn't attended church in person since the pandemic. So how did this person know that Nancy wasn't at or attending church that Sunday morning?
But the sheriff said again, no more news conferences today and nothing until it's warranted, and reiterated that they have identified no suspects, no persons of interest, nor any vehicles of interest. The key word being identified. They have not identified. That means they haven't told us. And we know that. They haven't told us publicly. What they're doing in private could be something entirely different, because that is the way law enforcement operates. They don't share everything with us publicly. That's usually the fact, right? That doesn't mean that there's not a lot going on behind the scenes.
All right, again, she's about to get to the church portion, but I completely believe that FBI, the local sheriff's office, they know a lot more than they're telling us, and they're not even telling the media. Okay, so they are keeping a lot close to the vest, and I know Ashley has put it out there, and she stands behind the son-in-law comment that she made. She kind of doubled down on that, and I personally just feel like I wouldn't want to speculate to say anyone in the family is involved. But again, it just seems like this is not really, to me, an abduction or kidnapping. And the whole ransom thing, it just it just doesn't seem right, because most of the time they want money and they don't want to keep it, too public. So why are these notes coming to these news stations? And they're coming from emails, and apparently the last note that came through like a contact form on the news site. It's just very strange, I mean, it's definitely not, I hate to say that these sorts of things happen, in a certain pattern or by a certain, book, but it's definitely odd, and it sounds very suspicious to me. It doesn't make sense.
And of course, we've already learned from the Chevron and the Circle K that the FBI actually was there asking about surveillance video about vehicles. So there are vehicles they're interested in. And no one's been ruled out as a suspect, as they'll say publicly. So it is just fascinating the way in which this continues to drip, drip, drip. The investigation showing up, leaving, showing up and leaving. Who knows if we'll get something soon? I mean, with the president telling us that there was something, that was almost definitive resolution, all those things, that was Friday night. And I thought maybe this weekend we would learn something. I don't know. Look, I don't know what it means. I don't know whether they're at loggerheads. I don't know whether they are getting their ducks in a row. I do know this. They don't share everything with you, and they don't share everything with me. And sometimes when law enforcement does share, they don't always share exactly what's going on, and sometimes they share a red herring. That is their prerogative. That is their business. Do not slight them for it. I've seen people taking the boots to the sheriff. It is unfair. Don't do that. This is a hard job. And this is a community that doesn't see this kind of crime a lot. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, they're gonna, if they're trying to catch somebody in something, or 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 give misinformation. I mean, law enforcement does that all the time. I mean, they get suspects, they tell them, they lie to them. So nothing surprises me in a case anymore, because law enforcement and the federal government, like the FBI that's handling this, the feds, they're not going to put all their cards on the table, because why should they? And the biggest thing is that there's a woman's life on the line. And we can only hope and pray that Nancy is somehow still alive. And 7 days later, we have no idea. And it seems like there has been no proof of life, at least not that we have heard confirmed at this point, anyway.
let's get back to this story about how the whole sordid tale of Nancy Guthrie's abduction began. The story that came to us was that somebody from church reported that Mrs. Guthrie had not shown up for church and that they'd alerted the family done the wellness check. But then we come to learn through other sources that reportedly she hadn't gone to church since the pandemic and that she live streamed the church services. And then there was other reporting that the church said this is not a two-way live stream. It's not like a Zoom call where, you know someone's on the Zoom call, they know you are, and you can talk back and forth. A live stream is something you just take in like like a Netflix movie, and that they would not necessarily know that someone's live streaming, that there would be no alert that maybe Mrs. Guthrie wasn't on the church live stream. And, to that point, I had a very good conversation with Megan Kelly about this and just how unusual that whole Sunday morning piece was when this all began.
Okay, so when I do live streams of churches, and I've done a number of them, you can do on YouTube, you can do them on Facebook, and I don't know if her church just does Facebook. I heard they do Facebook, or if she does it on YouTube. You can sign in. Okay, you can be signed into an account typically, and if you comment and say things, folks can know that you're there, and especially if they know Nancy, they would probably speak to her if she were to come in before the service and say, "Hey, good morning, I'm here. How is everybody doing?" But you also may not be seen because a lot of them don't share that. And secondly, if you don't comment and the viewership is not viewable to anyone but the actual streamer, I mean, you would have no idea how many people are watching with you. You may see a number and may say 200 people are viewing this stream, but you may have no idea that Nancy or whoever else is watching that service.
Have a look.
The timeline was changed dramatically on Sunday morning. What this sheriff had been saying to us before was that at 11 o'clock or just after 11 a.m. on Sunday morning, the family was notified by a friend in the church who noticed Nancy didn't attend, and they went over to her house, and about an hour later, they called 911. That was the story this whole
That
week.
created a lot of consternation.
Then we got to the... And many people said, why did it take an hour? How do you, like, especially seeing blood outside of the house, like Brian Ensign got on camera, who would take an hour? Now, then last night or yesterday at the presser, that totally shifted. He said they got to the house and discovered she was missing at 11:57 a.m. So we've lost a whole hour now, the controversial hour, and called law enforcement 5 minutes later at 12:03.
Yeah, I think it was 7 minutes later.
Sorry, my math is off.
By the way,
my math is off. Okay,
7 is lightning fast.
That's fast. Okay, so it's a dramatic difference. But here, let's just listen. Here's what he had said prior to yesterday. This was the story, SOT 18.
Sometime earlier that morning, they got a call from somebody at the church who said, hey, your mom's not here. The family went to the house. I'm thinking they spent some time looking for her themselves before they called us. So I'm guessing maybe they got there around 11. So they did some searching and realized we need some help, and they called 911.
She was dropped off at 9:30, and she was found to be missing at about 11 o'clock Sunday morning.
I know that when we got there, the family was already there, and they'd already spent some time looking, as you would expect. Probably we got an hour delay there from them. Not anything intentional, just that, they went and looked and made some calls, and then they decided we better call 911.
And I don't.
Okay, so let me pull up the timeline real quick here before we jump back to Banfield and Megan Kelly. All right, so here is the timeline. Hopefully you guys can see that. It says, okay, this is the night before, January 31st. Of course, we know that Nancy went to her daughter and son-in-law's home. She took an Uber there, which that's a whole nother element that if we do another video, and hopefully tonight we have some good news, but again, we have no idea. It's already been happening for a week. Garage door closes, it states, at 9:50 p.m. And, well, actually, of course, right here, 9:48 is when allegedly the son-in-law drops her off and opens the garage door, and the garage door closes. Okay, so February 1st, he's stating here that software detects a person on camera, and then you have the doorbell camera disconnects, pacemaker app disconnects. So the 911 call is in here. So family checks on Nancy at 11:56 a.m. Okay, so that's allegedly after someone from the church, they stated, called and said your mom wasn't in church today. So if she attends church streaming online, how does someone know that she's not attending the service? I mean, like I said, it could be that she normally goes on, she logs on, and she talks to people for a little bit beforehand. Such like when you go to the actual church, you know how a lot of times you greet people when you come in, everyone says, good morning, how are you? Yada, yada, yada. But otherwise, how would this person know that Nancy wasn't attending the service? And again, like they just said, if they went to the home, were those blood droplets not there when they went there? Because they were sure there when law enforcement arrived on the scene at 12:03 p.m. I mean, that to me would be a very suspicious thing. And, say, I would be like telling the family, listen, she didn't attend church. I'm here at the house and there's blood on the front steps, front area. I mean, something is wrong. So this portion of things is really odd to me. I mean, let me know you guys' thoughts on it as well.
At 11:56 a.m., the family checks on Nancy and discovers her missing. And at 12:03 p.m., 911 is called in to the Pima County Sheriff's Department.
What? Because just to underscore it here, first they got a call from a friend at the church around 11:10. Then he says it was at about 11. Then he told you, that middle clip is on your show. He says they found out about 11 and it was about an hour delay before they called 911. Now, yesterday, he says they checked on Nancy and discovered her missing at 11:57. Right? Is it? I keep
11:57. No, that's the right number. That's the right number.
Yeah, 57. So what do you mean? Because we've also, in the midst of all that, had both the Daily Mail and Brian Enton yesterday told us as well, reporting that Nancy Guthrie wasn't going to church physically anymore and hadn't been since the COVID pandemic, that she'd been joining the live stream the church offers and participating from her home. Moreover, the Daily Mail reports it wasn't a Zoom situation where the congregants could see who was joining virtually. It was just a live stream being blasted out by the church, outgoing only. And therefore, no one would be aware of whether Nancy was participating or not. So how did we go from she talked to a friend who was concerned at the church, which you heard him say on camera there, and they took him an hour and then they called 911, to now it's they checked on Nancy and discovered her missing and within moments called 911.
Yeah, I think these are all things that lead to an even bigger mystery and a little confusion. I always give law enforcement grace when there's so much going on and there's an exigent circumstance, and now all these ransom notes, which have taken law enforcement's direction elsewhere. Let's be honest, this is awful. These ransom notes, especially the one in California, if this guy is guilty of this, it has taken their attention away. But it's a, fog of war is not easy. I can understand how there'd be communication breakdown. There's other agencies coming in, sharing of information, maybe telephone, the game of telephone makes mistakes. But I do think that it adds to another element of confusion about this.
I think you're being too nice in this situation. With all due respect to the sheriff, you know as well as I do, the time she was discovered missing is very important.
It's critical.
It's not fog of war. It is not fog of war. That you know.
Yeah, it shouldn't be.
Yeah, the timeline is very, very important. The timeline is vital. I mean, and we talk about them here all the time, and as do a lot of other, the mainstream media talks about timelines. I mean, they're all over the place with this timeline. So how much of this timeline is wrong? It's just, I don't know. I mean, and the whole church portion is not on this timeline, and it's not on most of the timelines when I didn't make my own. So I admit I took this out from elsewhere. But the fact of the matter is, it's not on the official timeline from the sheriffs or the FBI, whoever made the initial timeline for the press conference. But that is very, very important. So who first discovered that Nancy was missing? And who is this church person that allegedly made a phone call to the Guthrie family? I'm assuming to Annie and her husband. So who is this person? I mean, I don't know. There's just a lot of questions and things that just are not adding up. And I mean, I just hate to say it. It does not feel like it's a kidnapping or abduction. And this whole ransom thing, I mean, I hate to say it, but I start to think that they are not connected to the actual fact that Nancy is missing. I don't think that it has. I think it's another outside source or sources playing a game. I mean, they already got one, they already have arrested one. And that's sick. It really, truly is sick. If these are all a bunch of, scammers and folks trying to take advantage of a horrible situation that Savannah and her siblings and the rest of the family are in. And again, and of course, if there's anybody in the family or that knows the family involved, I mean, well, hell, that's going to become a whole other ball of, a mess. But I just hate to say that they're involved, even though we have seen them searching both Nancy's house. They searched it and then they released it and left it, and then they've come back, more than once. So that to me is a little odd. And then he did all these searches over the weekend, overnight. That's not normal in a lot of these cases. And I know normal, I hate to say the word normal when it comes to a crime because, it shouldn't be normal, but there's certain things that are typical when it comes to some of these cases, and this one just defies all of that. And as far as searching, Annie's home with her husband, I mean, I don't know if that's just because of the fact that Nancy was there before she was returned home, or if there's more to that. And they said yes, that they were in that home for 2 or 3 hours. Seemed like they were taking photos because they saw the house was dark and the flash photography. Maybe they were doing the video there initially. I know before I started recording, I heard that the family has rented another home that's in a gated community to stay away from all this, the press and media, which I don't blame them one bit. But it's just so strange. This entire situation with poor Nancy Guthrie, it just does not make any sense to me. Well, things are just not adding up in the case of this missing 84-year-old mama. And like we've all been saying, who would want to take someone's 84-year-old mom? And, we obviously thought it had to do with Savannah and something to do with that. But there's all these conspiracy theories, speculation. I mean, that's typical. That's going to happen. But at this point, I'm just praying for Nancy, and I'm praying for this family, and I'm going to choose to just pray and hope that none of these 3 kids are involved. Her 3 children are involved, and obviously the biggest part is I'm hoping that Nancy is still, somehow she's still alive, and that message that Savannah read last night. She did a video today on Instagram late this afternoon, but she did that 22-second little thing last night that they were ready to pay and they wanted to celebrate their mother. It's been interpreted both ways. It's been interpreted they want her back because they believe she's alive and they want to celebrate with her, or celebration of life, meaning they don't believe that she's still with them here. But again, this is just very strange, guys, and all we can do is hope and pray for the best. And please let me know your thoughts in the comments, because I know most of you guys that follow these cases have been following this one, and it is definitely a mystery and very, very odd. All right, guys, I hope you have a great rest of the day, and most of all, stay safe.